This film has been made to give you a first-hand insight into the quality that is produced at the Yi Wao Chan sawmill, exclusively for Hornsby Timber. Welcome to Malaysia. The white cliffs you see on the left are the well-known Batu Caves. Close to an hour's drive along the Carrick Highway, we pass through the tunnel under the mountain at the Genting Highlands. This also marks the border between Selangor and Pahang. You will notice radiata pine plantations on your left, which is part of Malaysia's reforestation program. We are now entering Yi Wao Chan sawmill, which, translated, means sawmill by the river. Notice the log stocks, mainly Meranti kapong. Dark red is not produced at this mill. Each log is 22 to 24 feet in length and is never cross-cut before sawing, which gives good length specification. This timber has been logged from close to the Thai border and freighted to a nearby railhead. Then they are road freighted to the Yi Wao Chan sawmill some 500 miles away from where they were originally logged. The big logs need to be split before sawmilling to enable the sawyers to quarter saw the logs, otherwise it would end up as a backsawn. And, of course, backsawn boards cup where quarter sawn do not. A quarter sawn board has more character and beauty than backsawn. The machine used for splitting the logs is a 2.4 metre chainsaw driven by an air-cooled Volkswagen motor which is specially manufactured in Germany. The climate here is very hot and humid all year round. The water is kept full so as to keep the saw lubricated whilst cutting. Now that Malaysia is clear felling in many areas in order to plant palm oil trees, there are now huge quantities of very small immature logs on offer to sawmillers at around 120 Malaysian dollars per tonne. And the bulk of these small mixed species logs end up as a cheap, inferior, sappy moulding. By comparison, the logs you have seen here cost 350 Malaysian dollars per tonne, and all are Meranti kapong, and the timber here is all true wood. These girders are now reassembled around the next log as a carriage for the chainsaw. Approximately 3 to 4 loads of logs like these arrive every day from the Thai border, ready for sawing to Hornsby Timber's specifications. The saw is now manually repositioned, ready for the next log to be split. These crates are manufactured on site by a full-time employee. They have to be of substantial construction in order to protect the mouldings during shipment to Hornsby Timber. This first portion of the log is now taken to the sawyers, and all large logs are reserved for the recovery of wide boards quarter-sawn. Wide boards can only be recovered from small logs if backsawn, which of course is poor quality due to cupping, and if these logs went to the sawyers, not split, mostly backsawn timber would be the result. The remaining larger portion of the log is being prepared for splitting again. Compare the size of the log against the men standing at the butt. These logs weigh some 5 ton and produce approximately 3,000 super feet of timber each. Ivan Purcell of Hornsby Timber is discussing the logs with the sawmill manager. Ivan is permanently stationed at the mill to ensure that all Hornsby Timber requirements are met. The woman you see crossing the yard is Zali Ha, and is the Malaysian boss of the sawmill. She is known as Boss Lady. All logs are debarked prior to stacking to prevent pinhole borer attack. The Chinese temple house is situated at each workplace. Every morning before commencing work, a candle is lit, and prayers are offered up to their God for a successful day's production. A couple of inches from the end of the cut, the chainsaw has broken, but a simple on-the-spot repair job soon has it back in production. The repaired chainsaw is now fed back through the log, ready to finish the cut. Believe it or not, between the logs and the jungle is a 40-foot wide river. Just the thing to cool off in after a hard day's work. The log grabber selects a log quite daintily, in fact, and places it gently on the log carriage. This log carriage is quite heavy, as it must counterbalance the log, which, for cutting purposes, is balanced on the extreme edge of the carriage. The sawyers sight up the log for the first cut, and securely dog the log in position. You will notice that there is no mechanical facilities or power feed. Everything is done physically by the workers. Bandsaws used for breaking down are quite small. The wheel diameter is only 36 inches, and the bandsaw is powered by a diesel truck motor, as electricity is not available and the drive is through flat belts. In addition to no electricity, there are no phones, no town water, or any other amenities up in the jungle. All the logs and flitches are turned or positioned by hand, and these teams work from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. 6 days per week. The two sets of tracks are for different trolleys. The wider tracks are for breaking down, and the narrow ones are for resawing. This team has finished breaking down the log. They now change over to a lighter cutting trolley, and the log is carried on this trolley by centre balance only. These sawyers have exceptional skill in accurate cutting and the ability to straighten the flitch after it has sprung, and at the same time eliminate the tension that causes the flitches to spring. The sawing team are paid according to the production recovered from the logs. In a month, the sawyers can produce just on 200 tonnes of finished product per team. And with 3 teams constantly working, that's 600 tonnes of sawn timber per month. Notice how straight the finished product is. Undoubtedly the best in Malaysia. The short bundles you see stacked around the yard are sold to the local market because it is unsuitable for Hornsby timber. All the logs have a boxed heart of about 10 by 10, which is unsuitable for any purpose because of the heart being extremely brittle. This is the second team of sawyers, the A team. The reason for dogging the end of the timber is to stop the cut piece of log from dropping under its own weight. Even though the logs are extremely heavy and everything is done physically, these fellows seem to move the logs without much effort. Notice the wedges placed on the timber that slides out from the carriage. This prevents the log from dropping after cutting. These sawyers at the mill only go home on Sundays. For the rest of the week though, two different cooks have to be employed. A Malaysian cook for the Malay workers and a Chinese cook for the Chinese workers. And you thought the food all tasted the same. The diesel motors that drive the saws also provide power for the sawdust extraction plant, as well as a small generator which provides electricity for the saw shop, lighting for the office, and of course the electric jug for the many cups of tea. The pack of timber now leaving the saw is ready for end trimming and dipping in chemicals to prevent pinhole borer attack. It is then graded for mouldings or local market if not good enough for Yi Wao Chan mouldings. Boards are then placed in strip, where it remains in the drying shed for a minimum of 6 weeks air drying. None of Hornsby Timber's wood is stored outside the drying shed. The fellow with the watering can is again applying more chemicals to prevent pinhole borer, and there is no doubt that this timber is premium quality. Timber must be stacked correctly to ensure that none of the boards dry with bends in them. After the 6 weeks drying period, the timber is de-stripped and graded by a forestry licensed grader. You will notice that he personally marks each board, and each completed pack bears his license number. The girl sitting on the stack records the tally, and this timber is now ready for immunising and kiln grind. This is the Robinson 54-inch band resaw. Flitches from the breakdown saws are resawn here to fractional sizes with a tolerance of 1 millimetre, and it cuts at a continual feed speed of 75 metres per minute, whether the cut is anywhere between 1 inch or 12 inches deep. Nothing can compare with this quarter sawn 12-inch flitch. It's cream. This fellow is doing another quality check before the timber goes to the moulder. Docking defects, end trimming and size checking eliminates misdressing. We are now at the planing section, where the foreman is setting up the pre-straightening machine. Here, timber gets a final quality check. Spring is turned to the fence, size is checked and fed into the machine. On the outfeed side, boards emerge edge-trimmed, perfectly straight and true, to produce premium quality dressed timber. Now a team of girls take over and can be left to do a good job. And what timber yard wouldn't be proud of stocking these fine straight boards? It certainly keeps the customer satisfied. This is the Weinig 22B 9-head moulder. They had to install a diesel generator to power this machine, and the feed speed is constantly 60 metres a minute, after being tested at 30 metres a minute. Adrian Purcell of Hornsby Timber is supervising the test run of 1.5-inch quad, essential for quality control. And now they are running a 1.5-inch pencil round covers, 2 out of 3-inch, giving 120 metres a minute. Quite often they mill 4 out of 6-inch, giving an outfeed of 240 metres a minute. Now we have a glimpse of Alan Purcell, wood machinist and manager of Hornsby Timber's moulding plant in Australia, who frequently visits Malaysia to assist Ivan and Adrian in producing an excellent product for Australia. All split ends are cut off prior to bundling, so as the finished product is free from any defects. All small mouldings are tied up in tally lots, ready for distribution to Australian customers. The girls mark the length on each piece of timber. Ivan is constantly inspecting to ensure constant quality. This girl is recording a tally for each individual bundle. Lengths are sorted to give a fair average specification per bundle. The mouldings are tied in convenient tally bundles to facilitate servicing the merchants. They maintain a fully equipped bandsaw repair shop with a resident saw doctor trained in Japan. This saw is in the process of being sharpened and retensioned with the aid of a stretch roller. After this is done, any of these saws will run a full 12-hour day and cracked blades never occur. In the grinding room, all profiles are strictly to Tadmar specification, but they also produce mouldings to customers' own specifications. All cutter blocks are of the hydro grip type, which are held on the shaft by pressurized grease. Adrian, with his extensive knowledge and skill in the moulding field, checks to ensure the cutters are ground to perfection. All moulding profiles are recorded on hardened steel templates, and the cutter blocks reground from this template, thus ensuring consistency and accuracy. Tolerances on mouldings are down to 1/10 of a millimetre. The holes you see being punched in the plastic is to facilitate the penetration of chemicals during fumigation. Fumigation of the timber is a requirement of the Australian Quarantine Authority. Even the smaller sections are pre-straightened prior to milling. This is the kiln drying plant. The timber you see is stripped ready for kiln drying, most of which is designated for Hornsby timber mouldings, and a small percentage is for export sawn. A charge of timber is placed into a pressurised chamber, where timber is pressure impregnated with Tanalith RTM against lictus borer attack. All the timber with yellow end shipping marks is for export sawn to Hornsby Timber. Notice the 12 by 1 after kiln drying. It is not cupped or warped at all because it is quarter sawn. This is the antiquated steam engine still producing steam for the KD plant. Due to the drying time involved, all of the kilns are used to maximum capacity. This part of the transfer track system is used for charging the kilns. Back in the sawmill office, the sawmill manager along with Ivan negotiate log prices whilst enjoying a welcome pot of tea. And behind them is a workboard listing stocks in kilns and lists of profiles to mill. The pack of timber being tied up is reject timber, for use on the local market only. The entire staff enjoy an afternoon tea party to celebrate the end of the first year of moulding production. The stack of timber they are sitting on is for the manufacture of moulding crates. The workers are joined by family relatives and babies for the tea party because they live on the job. In Kuala Lumpur, where the head office and export division is situated, 2 girls are employed full-time, preparing documentation for shipments to Hornsby Timber. We sincerely hope that you enjoyed watching this film, and of course we at Hornsby Timber would be happy to help and advise any person interested in any facet of the timber industry which you have just seen.